Hi there, welcome to episode 5 of NP₃, the National Parks Photography Program. And today we're going to be doing a quick overview of the Fujifilm X-E1. Now the X-E1 is a rangefinder styled camera from Fuji, and it kind of sits in their lineup just below the X Pro one, which is their top level rangefinder styled camera, and then alongside the X Pro one at sort of the top level is the X-T1, which is another favorite of mine, but is more of a SLR styled camera instead of a rangefinder styled camera. So here is the X-E1 right here. And so when you see by rangefinder style, if you're not familiar with that, instead of having the sort of the hump for what in a traditional SLR would have been the mirror or the prism with the viewfinder centrally located, this has a flatter top and then an offset eye-level viewfinder. So that's what distinguishes a rangefinder style from a SLR style. But as you can see, it's a fairly compact camera, which is one of the things that was attractive to me about it. Easy to take around, and it's but it's not ultra compact. It's not like one of these things that's going to feel flimsy or get lost in your hand or anything by that means. What attracted me to this camera, as a bit of an overview first, is that I had a Sony A77, which was a camera I was really happy with. I have nothing but positive things to say about Sony, but it was a really large camera. And I mean, as is, a Canon 7D or a Nikon D7000 is a touch smaller, but there are these very big cameras, especially if you put on a vertical grip or anything like that. And to go on these long hikes through the parks, or a day of shooting photos while I'm traveling in a city, it was just it was a lot to lug around. And I had gotten myself a little Sony NP 5N, which is even much smaller than this. It's almost sort of just like the size of a sensor with a grip on it. It's very, very compact. But I found that was somewhat limited for me. It didn't have the eye-level viewfinder. And so I was sort of looking at something that was more portable, but still delivered really good image quality. And the Sony system was kind of evolving in a direction towards what they have now with their A7, A7S, and A7R lines, and those are brilliant full frame cameras, but they're sort of priced a bit higher because they're full frame, and it wasn't something that it wasn't at the top of my list. So a friend of mine, I was actually looking at a different camera. A friend of mine said, well, you might want to think about Fuji because I've heard really good things. And I had heard really good things as well. And so I found the X-E1 at such a tremendous value, and I'll get into pricing later. But subsequent to this, Fuji has also launched the X-E2, so it's the successor to this camera. So this isn't the latest model at this level of Fuji's lineup, but because the X-E2 was out, it dropped the price of the X-E1. So I was able to get this kit with this 18 to 55 millimeter lens for such an affordable price that it made it worth the risk versus renting one to see if I'd like it. It made it worth the risk to just buy, and if I had to resell, I would be out less than the cost of a rental, and it wouldn't really be that much more of a hassle. And if it turned out that I liked it, then I had the kit lens, so as I grew in the system, I'd already have that in hand. So that was sort of my thinking, and it's something there's really good value. Cameras 2 years ago, 3 years ago, were still really good cameras. And so, it's often the case that if you buy sort of one generation old, do your homework, because they might have come out with a really amazing feature that you need. But often it's sort of an evolution, and you're not giving up all that much to go back a generation, but you might be saving a huge amount of money. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But before I do want to do an overview of the X-E1. It's an APS-C sized sensor, so if I open it up here, you can see the not huge sensor, but that's a pretty good size. That's what you'd expect for this size camera in this price range. What you're giving up versus full frame is, if you really want to create that shallow depth of field, it's a little more difficult. And a full frame sensor typically will do better in low light situations compared to if you're doing a like for like comparison between an APS-C, a smaller APS-C, and a larger full frame sensor of sort of the same generation. However, the low light thing is one of the areas that Fuji, they have sort of a different sensor technology, and it's one of the areas they really shine. So you're not giving up that much in terms of the sensitivity compared to similar generations of full frame cameras. Like I said, a little tougher to get that good depth of field, or shallow depth of field. It is rangefinder styled, which makes it really, really great for carrying around, in a city. If you're just wearing it around your neck, it's not this huge bulky thing to lug around with you. The smaller sensor helps them be able to keep the lens sizes smaller, and so it's just very comfortable to carry around with you all day. One of the things Fuji has gone into is manual controls, so it's kind of a real old school feel, which I like. It also means that it's worth trying one out. Make sure you handle one before you buy, or you have a way that, like I did, that you can resell without a big loss, because some people just aren't going to like this as well as sort of the more contemporary DSLR controls. But you've got an aperture ring on most of the lenses right here, and you have a shutter speed ring right on the top plate of the camera, as well as the exposure compensation dial. And so that's pretty common throughout Fuji's range, that you have those manual controls, and some of them also add an ISO dial to the top plate. So you can look down, you can see how your camera's set up, and it's just that real old school way of setting your exposure and managing the controls. The other thing I love is it's got this little pop-up flash right here. So if I hit a button in the back, it'll pop up the flash, and it's not a big or very powerful flash, but it's always there with you. And the thing I really love about it is you can kind of, as you're shooting, use your finger to hold it back, and you can use it to bounce off the ceiling if you're in pretty close quarters in an indoor area and the ceiling's not too high and things like that. But it gives you that extra little bit of flexibility to have sort of more natural flash lighting, and it's always there with you. So again, if you're traveling, just having that extra feature, I find it really useful. In fact, the way I like to shoot with this is it's got really good, as I mentioned earlier, really good low light performance for its class of camera. And I'll set, if I'm just doing walking around a city during the day, I'll set it onto auto ISO, and you can adjust the range. So I'll set it between, like, say, 200 and 3200, which is most of this camera's range. It does go up to 6400 ISO, and actually still performs pretty well at 6400 ISO. It's not really a throwaway setting, but at 3200 it still is performing very well, like very pleasant images, not too much noise, not too much problems in the shadows, anything like that. So I'll set it to auto ISO, I'll set it to auto shutter speed, and just control for aperture, and I can walk around indoors, outdoors, all around, and I just worry about composition and depth of field, and the camera will take care of everything else. It does a really nice job. So in those situations where it's not a sunset, it's not a horribly tricky or complex lighting situation, it just frees me up to worry about the stuff that I want to worry about, and makes for a really, really pleasant experience. As I mentioned, it comes with this 18 to 55 millimeter lens, which is just, it's a wonderful, you think 18 to 55, it might be just a cheap kit lens. This is not just a cheap kit lens. Really great build quality, metal rings, excellent construction, very, very good image quality, faster than your normal kit lens. It's a 2.8 to f4 throughout the range, so it's reasonably fast. It's fast enough for me. for a kit lens. The controls, everything feels nice and smooth. It's a real pleasure to use. And one of the great advantages of the Fuji system is the lenses they have. I mean, this is great. Oh, this is also has image stabilization that works very well, so that's nice. And they have a great lineup of lenses. You can also adapt. So I adapt lots of old Minolta lenses, which at some point in a future video I'll talk about. But you can adapt these old prime lenses, and then Fuji has their own. That's one of the real strengths. It's just outstanding prime lenses. So that brings us to the value of this, and why, for me, getting the X-E1 versus the X-E2 was such a great deal. Is being a generation old, you can save lots and lots of money. So for instance, right now, and I'm filming this in January of 2016, Happy New Year, at B&H they still have body-only versions of these for $299. So to get a camera like this for $300, new, from a good seller, is amazing value. Whereas an X-E2 body only, you're looking at $800. So less than half. You're knocking $500 off. And the X-E2 has some nice things, better autofocus. I think the viewfinder might be a little better, but I'm not sure. It has some updates, and then Fuji continues to update that more with firmware. But it really isn't that much more advanced that you're going to pay, 2.5 times more money for an X-E2 than an X-E1, in my opinion. So this makes it such a great way to get into the system. And if you love it, you're not going to resell this for much less than you paid for it. Most of the values come out of this. So you could get one for $300 new and turn around and sell it for probably $250 right now. So it's a great way to get into the system. If you're looking at the kit, I wasn't able to find any new X-E1 kits anymore, but used through KEH. So KEH is my favorite used camera gear seller. They rate things very honestly. What KEH will call an excellent is often almost like new compared to if you're buying on eBay or anything like that. So I have a great deal of confidence when I buy from KEH that I'm going to get something that's up to the standard I expect, and then you can return it, and they stand behind what they're selling more than sort of an independent seller might. This as a kit from KEH is right now in excellent plus or like new minus. So really good condition from KEH is just under $600. An X-E2 kit new is $1,100. So we're still $500 less than the X-E2 kit. And in fact, we're just over $200 for the complete kit, less than the X-E2 body only. And this is a really great lens. So that, to me, in terms of value, more than makes up for the price difference. Now, once Fuji launches the successor to the X-E2, you'll see the price of that come down, and it might be that the X-E2 becomes the real great value proposition, depending on what features they add to the successor camera or that. But it's something I'm always looking for, is if I don't need that latest and greatest again, one generation old might be the place to go. So excellent value from a reputable buyer. And again, if you're looking at eBay, you're not saving very much money off of an eBay purchase compared to a KEH purchase. And for that $50 you might save, or maybe you'll find a great deal, who knows? But for that little bit of money you might save, you don't know that the seller's going to stand behind it the same way that a more established seller will. And what that also means, again, is if you buy this kit for $600 and you don't like it, or even you want to sell it on a year down the road, you're not going to be losing that much money. A lot of the depreciation has occurred, and this is still going to be a really great camera a year or two from now. So so that's sort of my introduction into why I bought this, why I think it's such a great camera, and why I think, more than just being a great camera, why I think it is such a great value. Really, basically professional. If you're a professional, you can shoot almost anything you want with a camera like this. This isn't going to be the thing that lets you down. You might make a mistake. It's not an action camera, right? If you're going to go shoot sports, this isn't the thing for you. But for a travel camera, I just love it. And circling back to when I first got it, I took it out on a trip. I was getting it with the eye towards replacing my Sony Alpha system with the Fuji X-Series system. And what I found was, switching back and forth, I'd pull out that Sony and I'd almost just be disappointed. Not because the images were bad or that it wasn't a quality camera, but just the bulk of it. I just loved the experience of using this camera, and I've been very happy with it. And so it's really something I think to look into for, if you're someone who just wants to, if you're into travel photography, even, it'll do great landscapes. If you want to travel light, the Fuji X-Series system is something that I love. I'm not saying it's necessarily better than Panasonic or Olympus Micro Four Thirds or the Sony Nex cameras or the new smaller Sony Alpha cameras, which are their E-mount cameras, which are, from everything I've heard, is great. I don't have experience with those. I do have experience with this, and I can't believe it's worse than any of those are. It might appeal, different things might appeal differently to different people, but this is right up there for me. So I'm rambling on too much about this, but I hope this was useful to you. I hope you like it. If you want to see more videos about this, the occasional gear review like this, or up next will be my overview of Acadia National Park. So if you want to make sure you don't miss out on videos like that, subscribe to this channel. And thank you so much for taking the time to watch this, and have a great day.